We've got breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ. Massive news from the world of golf, where John Rahm is reportedly set to leave the PGA Tour for LIV Golf on a deal in excess of 3 years and $300 million. ESPN reporting that an announcement is expected today, barring a late change of heart for the reigning Masters champion. This comes just a few weeks shy of the deadline for an agreement between the PGA and the Saudi PIF, which finances LIV. At number 3 in the world, Rahm would become the highest ranked player ever to join LIV Golf. In terms of Masters champions that have joined LIV, here is the list. Rahm would be the latest addition, joining Sergio Garcia, Dustin Johnson, Phil Mickelson, Patrick Reed, Charles Schwartzel, and Bubba Watson. Let's bring in CBS Sports golf analyst Michael Breed for more on this. Michael, first of all, I'll get your reaction. We just had a quick chance to connect before we come on here, but we both agree. Massive news here with Rahm potentially headed to LIV.
I think it's probably the first and most massive of all of them. I mean, Koepka, Johnson, you think about those guys, and certainly those are players that you'd expect to see them on the top of leaderboards. But frankly, John Rahm is a #1 player in the world and a guy that just won the Masters, coming off of that U.S. Open, that thrilling U.S. Open win in San Diego. This is a real shock, and a guy who I frankly thought was playing for a career on the PGA Tour. I think that this is a generational talent, John Rahm is. And when John Rahm says to you that he back, and this is, you know, what, just about a year and change ago, he's going to be on the PGA Tour. This is the only time I'm going to answer this question. I will not leave the PGA Tour. I am a PGA Tour player. This is where I'm going to make my career and my history. And all of a sudden, you know, another year later, he doesn't come out and tell us this is what he's doing. There's just radio silence and rumor, and then rumor to reality, and John Rahm is gone. And I think that this is a very detrimental thing for the PGA Tour. It's certainly financially, it's a wise move for John Rahm, but where does this take his career from here? Because most of the individuals that have gone to LIV to play golf on LIV, they're really an afterthought. I mean, candidly, they're an afterthought. I know Koepka won a major, but you know, you think about it and you go, I don't know. This guy's kind of an afterthought. And so is that the path that John Rahm wants to go down? Again, 2 major championships. Is that all he ends up winning his career? Will this decision be the reason why?
So, Michael, I guess the question I have for you is what's changed for John Rahm? If he makes that statement a year ago, I mean, we know that he's got a young family. We know that the LIV schedule is not the same as the PGA schedule. So for you, what has changed for him? Why would he make the switch?
Well, you know, it's an interesting thing. I think it's hard, right? If somebody comes up to you or to me and says, hey, you're doing a job right now and you're making $150,000 and I'm going to pay you $15 million to do the same thing somewhere else, you're going to pause and think about it. Now, he did answer that question when the rumor around was, well, he's going to get paid $400 million to do it. He says, no, I'm not interested in doing that. My family is going to be fine. Well, now all of a sudden it changes, and there's ownership here, and there's dollars here, and by the time it's said and done, not only is he going to be fine, but so are his kids going to be fine, and his kids' kids are going to be fine. So I don't know. I look at this. Where do I think it comes from? I think it probably comes from Phil Mickelson. We all know that John and Phil are very good friends, and over a period of time, Phil Mickelson, it appears, would be at the bottom of this and has sold this to a guy that he said many years ago he thought would be the #1 player in the world. That prediction came to be true, and now you know, there's a lot of respect that John has for Phil, and it seems like, you know, he has started drinking the Kool-Aid, and he's headed over there.
Again, according to reports this afternoon, John Rahm reportedly set to leave the PGA Tour for LIV Golf in a deal that's in excess of $300 million. Michael, PGA Commissioner Jay Monahan is reportedly set to meet with PIF Governor Yasir El-Rumayyan next week. So with this deal in hand, what does this potentially mean for the PGA?
It's a lot of different things. I mean, the PGA Tour right now, to me, is in the middle of a hostile takeover. That's what I see. If you look at what's going on, this public investment fund has looked at this and said, okay, these are the players that we want to target, and we want to go get them. And rumor is that there are others to follow behind Rahm, just as we saw a couple of years ago when Dustin Johnson and Brooks Koepka left. I think that if that's true, what is Jay Monahan doing except trying to figure out how to hold on? And I don't know whether this means that they're closer to an agreement or they're farther away from an agreement. My feeling is that if you're going to go and poach a player like John Rahm, who was potentially the player of the year on the PGA Tour, let's not forget, I know you mentioned he won the Masters, but he won 3 other times, 4 wins on the PGA Tour. It certainly looked like to me back then he was going to win 7 times. And it's hard to think that there would be somebody that would be a player of the year on the PGA Tour other than John Rahm, except for this situation. And so when I start thinking about this, I don't really know whether Commissioner Monahan is closer to a deal with the Saudis, or he's farther away. It certainly feels like they're farther away. And my guess is that if they are farther away, they are as far away as they can ever be. I don't think that you can come back from this unless you put something together right now. I don't think that this is going to go in a direction down the road where they would come together. I think that Commissioner Monahan, and he had alluded to that earlier, not long ago, instead of a couple of weeks ago, where he said, we're looking at a couple of things. Tiger Woods even said the same thing at the Hero World Challenge. We are entertaining a number of possible investors, not just PIF or LIV. And it certainly feels to me like, the lawsuits are gone, but the trouble is still there.
Rahm, as you mentioned, a big winner last year, won 3 of the first 7 events on the tour calendar last year, and then, of course, capped it with the Masters in April. Let's say here, Michael, that the deal does go through as originally reported between the PGA and LIV Golf. Rahm would return to the tour at some point, so he's taking the money here, but, eventually possibly coming back. So what's stopping other top players from doing the same?
Well, that's exactly the point, which is why I think it's harder for them to even think about putting something together again. Because if you're John Rahm and you're going to go over to LIV for $300+ million and ownership in a company, which we'll call a team, but ownership in a company, and then all of a sudden the entire group disappears, now what? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And so I kind of feel like LIV isn't going anywhere. I think the lawsuits have disappeared, but I don't think that tour has disappeared. And I think as a result of them getting John Rahm, I think all of a sudden this opens up the floodgates for a number of other players. And that could be a very, very bad thing for the PGA Tour. I mean, it couldn't come at a worse time. We're starting to get Tiger Woods back into this game, but now all of a sudden John Rahm is gone, and who else is to follow?
So in terms of Rahm, I mean, we know he won the green jacket last year, and that's a lifetime invitation to the Masters. Is that the only place where we can expect to see him in terms of the PGA for the foreseeable future?
No, I think you'll see him play in a U.S. Open, and certainly, look, is John Rahm a generational talent? He's an extremely talented guy. There's no question about it. And we're going to see him play in major championships. Are we going to see him play in a PGA championship? I can't tell you that I know the answer to that in 5 years from now, but I do think that John Rahm we'll see him every year at a Masters. He's going to finish high enough in one of those Masters, if he doesn't win another one, to play in a U.S. Open or a British Open. And so I expect to see him in major championships. I don't know what's going to end up happening with the Ryder Cup. I don't know whether he's going to be part of that European team or not. Obviously, with limited chances to play in points earning events like major championships, I don't know that he'll do what Brooks Koepka did this past year. It's there's so many questions that are yet to be answered, and I'm actually looking forward to hearing what John Rahm has to say as he backtracks on his word that he gave us not long ago that said, I will be a PGA Tour player. I'm never going over there no matter how much money. Well, it certainly seems like he is.
3 years, $300 million, according to reports. CBS Sports golf analyst Michael Breed joining us to discuss this breaking news. John Rahm reportedly set to leave the PGA and join LIV Golf. Michael, always appreciate your insight. Thank you very much for joining us. Major winners that are in LIV Golf. John Rahm joins a rather healthy list here. You see him, 2 majors to his name. Phil Mickelson, of course, the biggest. 6 major wins for him, followed by Brooks Koepka with 5. And as Michael said, is that it for John Rahm in terms of major wins on the PGA Tour?